Test, test, test. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. 5, 6. Test, test, test.
Yeah, there's all good.
All right, we're live. So, we will resume in the regular meeting at 7:19 p.m. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Goodman?
Here.
Mrs. Gallagher? Here. Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mrs. Murray? Here.
All right, with that, I will hand it over to Mrs. Lombard.
Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we would just like to take a moment to have a moment of silence for Jamie Medina Morales, who was part of our McCagan family, kindergarten student who had passed away over Labor Day weekend. We just ask that we take this time to keep Danny's family and his loved ones in your thoughts at this time.
Thank you for that. That will move to number 4, Pledge of Allegiance. I think, Mr. Aney, you have some friends?
All right. Today I come on behalf of some of the most amazing students that we have at Huntley High School. Behind me, you are going to see our Raider Nation leaders. If you've ever had the opportunity to go to a football game, you realize that our fan base, student fan base, outnumbers any other school in our district or in our conference at least 3 to 1. This is the heart and soul of that fan base. They not only do a fantastic job of leading the chants that you'll hear that during those games, but they promote an inclusive atmosphere by going to other sporting events, activities. They read to the elementary students in our district. They do amazing things with creating events where we can try to fundraise for students of our community. They just do everything from welcoming the freshmen at Raider Rally to being a source of hope for the 8th graders that are coming into high school. So these are just some absolutely amazing young individuals, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then I will let them do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you guys want to just come up here one at a time and introduce who you are, I'd appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Alex Nampientek. I'm a wrestler at Huntley High School. I'll pass.
Hello, I am Mark Scruggs, a senior at Huntley High School, and I do absolutely nothing but Raider Nation, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Ava Trudeau, and I play varsity soccer at Huntley High School. Hi, I'm Vicky Eftimov. I'm a part of the track team, the varsity track team. We were here earlier this year. It was awesome.
Hi, I'm Zach Rogers, and I'm a part of the Medical Academy at Huntley High School.
Hi, my name is Gabriel De La Paz, and I play varsity lacrosse.
My name is Noah Jensen, and I run varsity track in the spring.
Hi, my name is Davis Tomlinson, and I do link crew at Huntley High School.
Hi, I'm Lonnie Mendoza. I also do link crew, and I am on the track team. Hi, my name is Joel Van Doren. I play varsity girls lacrosse.
Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see?
Hey, it's the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, guys. First rodeo. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're gonna take a picture.
Okay, okay, as long as you guys can see me.
Oh, can you see everyone? Where do you go to the right? There we go. You have Gina? Gallagher, go to your left.
Gina. There we go.
Maybe should we move him over? No, I got it. Thank you, very good. I think she was talking.
Oh,
Thank you.
no talking. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the two meetings, the next section here is, the first of 3 opportunities for public comment. I don't know if there are any public comments. All right. We will, all right, I will make a motion to suspend the regular meeting to hold the budget meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Bittman,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
All right. That, we will call to order the regular meeting, the budget meeting hearing, at 7:26 PM. A quorum has been met. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Still here?
Mrs. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Bittman,
Here.
Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
All right, thank you. With that, we will start the meeting. Number 2, the budget hearing, Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. That was great, by the way, and the Raider Nation kids said they were gonna stay for my budget presentation, so I was actually kind of excited.
And you
because
believe
this is
them?
really,
Yeah, you
this is
believe
truly about them and how we allocate resources for our students, so I'm sad to see them leave, actually, but that was very funny. So in front of all the board members, we do have a very large packet, this budget packet. It's been 8 months in the making, and we've presented this budget on 5 different occasions. I do have a presentation, as you can see on the screen. It'll be somewhat brief, but I do want to highlight, well, a lot of the material points of the budget, which I think the public, anybody who's watching or anybody in the audience, should know really some of the material things that we spend our money on. So without further ado, hopefully I can get this to work here. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna have to play around with this a little bit. I always start my budget off with this, which is why I was hoping the Raider Nation kids would be here, because this is why which we ask our community for property taxes. This is right up there with it, so. Here's our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, a financial strategic measure, is the district remains sustainable to meet the needs of the students in the community and the staff as well, and to allocate resources effectively and efficiently. And I think over the last 8 months, we've been able to do that with this budget. So this is a very strong budget, I think, as you'll see. At a very high level, we'll talk about big picture operating results. We'll provide you a view of the revenues and the expenses at a glance. We'll talk about the modifications from the last draft. We talked about some of those at one of the last board meetings. And then we'll end with the risks and ultimately the administration's recommendation on the FY24 budget. Here's the FY24 budget at a very high level. $129.1 million in revenue, $128.4 million in expenses, and a balanced budget with an operating surplus of $693,759. If you're looking at the numbers below that, the beginning fund balance and the ending fund balance, that represents where approximately we will be at the end of FY24 if we were to hit these numbers exactly. But please note that we're comparing these numbers to the FY23 budget, and the FY23 budget is not yet final. We did have the audit, and we should see an audit report in the next week or so. Here's a nice pie chart of our revenues, okay? And we break our revenues into various buckets according to ISB, and the majority of our revenue, you can see there, 60% comes from property taxes, so no surprise. Other local revenue includes things such as food services, registration fees. We also have the evidence-based funding model of the state of Illinois, and that's 25% of our revenue, so that's a pretty big number. We also receive state revenue for reimbursement type grants, for transportation reimbursement, for private facility reimbursement, for room and board. If we have a special ed student that is a room and board student, we would also see that in that part of the pie. And then lastly, federal revenue, which for this is fairly high at 4%, because that includes ESSER funds and ARP funds and the community partnership grants. So it includes some grants that we typically don't see, but it also includes title grants, national school lunch, as well as Medicaid. So that's why that is at 4%. And we'll dig into a little more detail here. Here's just a chart of our revenue stream over the last 5 years. And this year's revenue is increasing by, I believe, $5.57 million, and I'm going to get to that in a second. And that revenue is increasing primarily as a result of the local revenues, the state revenues, and the federal revenues. So we'll go through those one by one. Local revenues are expected to increase by about $4.25 million to $85.87 million, right? And that's the result of the increase in levy dollars, property tax dollars of $4.86 million, an increase in the estimated interest earnings, right? The economy has been moving forward, and as a result, well, we collect a little more interest earnings on the investments that we do have. So that's good news there. And we also have a decrease, and we talked about this at prior board meetings, a decrease in an estimate for activity account revenue of $1 million. That is really not a profit and loss impact to the district because we have that same offset on the expense side, which we will talk about. State revenues are expected to increase. This is a big number because we generally don't see it increase by this amount, but it is increasing by $3.7 million to $37.75 million. It is increasing by that much, primarily driven by the evidence-based funding model, whereby on an annual basis, well, in the past, we were receiving an increase of about $675,000 a year. But then we moved from a Tier 2 district to a Tier 1 district, and what that means is, well, we were not adequately funded. In other words, we moved to a lower tier, even though it's Tier 1. We moved to the lowest tier of funding, meaning that we are one of the highest districts not near adequacy in the state of Illinois. And by moving to Tier 1 last year, we received approximately $1.3 million. Well, this year under Tier 1 funding of Illinois, we were notified a few weeks ago, that we're going to receive $2.82 million in funding. And we actually questioned that amount because historically, if you're a Tier 1 district, you receive the same amount year after year. So we were expecting approximately $1.3 million. But what happened was a lot of districts that were in Tier 2 ended up moving into Tier 3, and a lot of Tier 1 districts moved into Tier 2, which left a lot more money to be allocated to Tier 1 districts, including our district. And that number ballooned to $2.82 million, which is good for this district and certainly good for our students and staff. We also have an increase in the transportation reimbursement revenue by $400,000. We have an increase in the private facility and orphanage claim of $228,000. And lastly, we have the recognition of a new teacher vacancy grant that we received several months ago of $311,000. Lastly, federal revenues are expected to decrease a little bit, and they're decreasing by $2.45 million, primarily because, well, last year we had a lot of ESSER monies in the budget. A lot ESSER and ARP money and other grants that we received from the federal government as a result of COVID. And as we use those dollars, well, those numbers came down by approximately $2.4 million. So that's the decrease in federal revenue. Here's a picture of our pie chart for our expenses. To no surprise, salaries and benefits, we are a service organization. At any one point in time, we have almost 1,600 employees, part-time, full-time, running through our payroll system on a monthly basis. That's a lot of employees. So it makes sense that 77% of our expenses are both salaries and benefits. Benefits are primarily the health insurance for those that are part of the plan. We have purchased services, supplies, and materials, as well as the capital outlay for the district and other objects, and we'll jump into those here on this next slide. Operating expenditures are budgeted to increase approximately $5.13 million versus prior year, and we'll get into a little bit of the details. We talked about salaries and benefits. They're expected to increase approximately $5.6 million. Union and non-union increases, according to collective bargaining, will increase $2.29 million. And the benefits, this is a big one, health insurance, payroll taxes, and TRS that the board pays, increased $3.38 million, primarily driven by a 19% estimated increase in health claim expense of $2.212 million and a contractual increase in TRS of $1.2 million. So I want to stop and pause on that because the health insurance is approximately $13.29 million in this budget, and we had to increase that line item significantly. We had to increase that line item by 19% because of the claim experience that we had in the district last year. We've talked at many, many board meetings, almost monthly, we talk about health insurance claims, and we've got a lot of large claims in the pipeline. We've got a lot of, unfortunately, sick people, and as a result of that, first time really ever that we exceeded budget significantly last year, and we needed to make sure that we're setting aside dollars for next year's health insurance claims. We have had meetings with the underwriters of Blue Cross Blue Shield who analyze based on the experience of our plan, based on the members of our plan. They analyze what they think our claims will be next year, and the amount that we have budgeted is in line with what they're expecting. In fact, we may be a little short of what they are expecting, but certainly us budgeting these additional dollars is definitely needed for the district. Purchase services are expected to increase by only $100,000, primarily driven by a decrease in expenses associated with, the available ARP and ESSER dollars that we talked about. So when we budgeted ARP and ESSER revenues in prior year, even the current year, there's an offsetting expense. And so this just reflects that offsetting expense of $760,000. We renegotiated our custodial contract this past year, and as a result, we landed with GSF. They have been doing an incredible job on our facilities, fantastic job. And we knew this was going to happen because, we had to get the pay rates up for the custodial services for the employees that are here primarily during our second shift to clean our buildings. And so we had an increase in that contract of approximately $262,000. We also have an increase in the instructional contracted services of $580,000. So as we all know, it's tough times. Talk to HR. It's tough hiring certain employees, and as a result, when we need to meet the needs of our students, especially within special ed, we have to contract sometimes outside services, and we had to increase that line item this year to $600,000. So that's a significant increase. We have supplies and materials. They're expected to decrease by $300,000, approximately $295,000. That decrease is also associated with the ARP ESSER funding of $1.2 million. We had an increase of electric of $200,000. There was a carbon-free credit that the district was taking advantage of last year from ComEd, and that is being phased out. So as it's phased out, we expect that the cost of energy for us, for the district, to go up a little bit versus what we had anticipated and paid for in 2023. And then lastly, we have an increase in curriculum new adoption back to normalized levels because we reduced the budget by $700,000 last year, and we brought it back to where it needed to be so that they can move forward with the adoptions as planned, so that's $700,000. Capital outlay is expected to increase by $660,000 to $4.2 million. Those primarily include, well, projects that the board has already approved that we've been working on and pretty much completed this summer. So we have a DX cooling replacement project at Marlowe. That was a $2.3 million project. We have the transportation asphalt improvements back here right next to us of $1.1 million. Those are the two big ones that I think we need to note. These are the modifications from the last draft, and we've talked about a lot of these already, right? The state EBF book to actual. That was the $1.3 million to the $2.8 million once we learned that we were allocated additional dollars from the state of Illinois. That's the $1.593 million. The transportation claim final estimate. In the month of August, that's when we file our transportation reimbursement claim, and in doing so, primarily driven by, well, an increased cost, as well as some of the capital projects that we've done, causing depreciation reimbursement. We increased the transportation reimbursement by $413,000. We also have the instructional services contracted, right? The $200,000 on the expense side reflects an unfavorable increase. So we increased that instructional services contract line one more time because we were able to pull a final estimate together working with special ed and various departments to estimate that number. We have an increase in health claim expense. We talked about that. We increased it an additional $1.3 million, creating a 19% increase to $13.3 million overall for the district. And then lastly, we trued up the contract custodial final estimate with the actual contract, which was another $187,000 adjustment to contract services. All resulting in a final operating budget surplus of $693,759. I'm going back to this because there's risks and recommendations. Well, the risk with this budget, with any budget, right, we talked about the volatility of health insurance claim. That may be our biggest risk, right? The economy is always a risk because as the economy goes up or down, interest earnings on the investments we have go up or down, right? The consumer price index in the out years, not necessarily this year, that's always a risk down the road, right? If the consumer price index comes in at 1% or less than 1%, which it has done in the past, when that happens, it materially impacts our ability to use those dollars towards anything, really. And when we're under contract with teachers and support staff, it makes for a challenging day trying to balance the budget. So there's a lot of risks as well as execution risks, right? We all need to do the things we need to do to make sure that, well, we stay within our budget to the best of our ability so that we can continue to remain sustainable for our students and our staff, ultimately for all students always. And with that, we leave you with a recommendation. Administration recommends that you approve the FY24 budget with a $693,759 operating surplus. I'll open it up for any discussion.
Yes, I'll start. So what frustrates me as a taxpayer when I look at the budget and going through the process here is when we started this back, I think in May, the expense was $124.6 million. And we found some additional money from the state in the support of the teachers in the hiring act, the $300,000. The other pieces there, the $400,000 you went through, as well as the evidence-based funding of $1.3 million. So then the revenue went up. And I'm discounting the extra stuff that wasn't in this year, right? That's a different story. But when I look at that, what frustrates me is it seems like you continued, I should say, the district continues to just match the expenses against the revenue that they can find, instead of working towards trying to bring back some to the taxpayers. When we get these, because we didn't expect almost $2 million of the dollars 2 months ago.
Well, if I hear you correctly, when you're comparing that May report to this report of operating expenditures, right? One of the final adjustments we made was health insurance, and that was an additional 1.3 million, so that we could feel good about having a solid budget number for health insurance expense. The other piece that we're missing is, as we discussed, is ARP and ESSER dollars, because in the very first few drafts of the budget, all of the ARP and ESSER dollars, revenues and expenses, were carved out of this budget. And that is millions of dollars. That is upwards of $2.5 million. So
I mentioned
a lot of the difference we're seeing between the current operating expenditures and what you saw in May are those two or three items, ARP and ESSER, as well as custodial. And yes, we've increased various line items because as we're drafting the budget and we're still trying to finalize our FY23 spend, in other words, our audit, to see where did we land on contracted services? Where are we going to be on contracted services for FY24? In May, we have no idea where we are in terms of hiring. When we start school in the middle of August, we don't know what we need. We're hoping we need 0. But we won't know until we start the school year and we finalize IEPs and we know what our needs are after shuffling the deck, so to speak, in HR with our staff, knowing do we have enough social workers and psychs and speech paths and the things that we need to service our IEPs. That is a lot of what you're seeing here. So that is very common. So it's not that additional revenues come in and we find a place for those revenues. No, that is not the case at all. Which is also why we are showing a 693 operating surplus here.
I discounted the ARP and the ESSER stuff because that's just a timing thing.
So I appreciate the comment, but I would say that is, you may have that perception, but that is absolutely not how we draft the budget. Now, in prior years, if additional dollars become available and we have additional needs, whether it's on the capital side or we have additional needs throughout the system, when we're the lowest spending district around it, we know we have needs for our students. We know we could use those revenue dollars to service our students, whether it's to improve curriculum or to improve special ed or to improve our buildings because we have to maintain our buildings. Yes, we find places for those expenses.
Right.
And I would love to have that conversation.
The biggest piece appears to be the healthcare stuff, which is when we got the evidence-based funding, you said, hey, let's go move this and put that back into place. What frustrates me, though, is in May, we knew the healthcare was going to be an issue. We knew that that was going to be a much higher one, and yet we didn't forecast that. So I don't understand that. And I also like to understand, are there ways that we can cap our upside risk on the healthcare side, right? Because if you're not self-funded, you're typically paying for the insurance to cover that.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be ways to bring that risk down so that we don't have as much of a, because this was a historical year. This was one of the worst years I think we've had in the district.
This is.
And you're kind of banking on it again. And I understand the conservative nature of doing that. The money's there in your mind. And that's what I would just, as a taxpayer, I look at that and I say, well, wait a minute, did we really need to do that? Or maybe we need to look at something else. So the budget as established really hasn't been scrutinized from the board level on the cost side. That's part of my comment.
I agree that we could have in May, I could have budgeted a $1.5 or $1.6 million deficit at that time for health insurance. But at each and every board meeting, we all knew we were $2 million over budget. And the budget's not final until we make all of the adjustments that need to go into the budget. And at each budget presentation, I talked about the risks, and I talked about health insurance at each and every budget presentation. And so ultimately, right, when those dollars are available, yes, we assign those dollars to that line item. So other than that, trying to be transparent, I think we talk about health insurance at every meeting. That's very transparent.
And then just the last comment is, in fiscal year 18, when we were at the peak enrollment, we were at a little bit over 100 million, so we gained 26 million, and our enrollment has dropped 12%. I'm just gonna make that comment so everybody in the audience can understand that, right? The enrollment has dropped significantly, it's not a small number, and the costs have gone up, almost 30%.
That is correct. And we still remain one of the lowest spending districts around.
Again, most of it's salaries and wages.
Yeah.
It's part of that budget, so peak of enrollment, that's when our class sizes were the largest. Since then, we've been working our way down on the enrollment size and on the class size. We have not eliminated, we've eliminated some teaching positions, not a lot, but class sizes have gone from what were getting to be a bit high, on the high side, to a much more manageable, where everybody's a little bit more comfortable with where we want to be. So while your statement is 100% correct, there's, I mean, I understand the reasons why it's occurred, or as much as it is, well, I mean, contractual, you know, future contracts, I mean, we did give, you know, decent increases along the way here. This past contract and HESPA's contract was substantial in its increases. That's going on there. But I understand the concern, but I think it's still framing it in the balance of, so where's it at? Where does it put us in regards to spend per pupil? We're still in line. We're still below state average, especially for suburban school district. You know, it's both side standpoint. So I still think we're in line. In regards to the health insurance, you're right. I think the thought process back then was this was an inordinately high year, and should we really take budget for it? I think what's happened, you're going to ask what's different. And I think there's been some conversations with our insurance providers and some data that's been shared with our administration that still hasn't made its way to our insurance committees and stuff, that they're aware of, that make them feel that they needed to boost this up based on the feedback they were getting from the insurance company. I know you asked about, we do have stop loss policies on this. They're not great. Where are we at?
600.
What is it?
600.
Oh, no, per incident, per
165.
What is it?
165,000.
Yeah, okay, but it used to be 125, we moved it to 165. It still costs us, I mean, the premiums for 165,000 stop loss per person is what it still costs us for that.
Yeah. It used to be back in the day $400,000 for stop loss insurance, but as of the last several years, the payouts on that has been upwards of $3 million, and the stop loss insurance has been approximately 1.4 to 1.6 million in premium.
Right.
So Blue Cross Blue Shield continues to lose on that deal, but while that is happening, our premium for stop loss continues to increase as a result.
I understand the thoughts, concerns, but at the end of the day, it still is a reasonable approach. Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain we're going to be at a deficit when we finish the audit.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's predominantly because of the health insurance experience that we had. So, given that we budgeted and we don't have many deficits. Not what's occurred very often with this district, that I think Mr. Hoffman has taken the position up here. We get this up, let me budget a conservative surplus here and at least budget for healthcare expenses at a level that was similar to the prior year.
Which at this point in time, based on discussions with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, the underwriter, the increase is not a conservative increase. It's an increase, but I don't think it's a conservative increase at all. Could be more.
Is Blue Cross and Blue Shield the only insurance provider, or can we shop around?
And we do, generally do that every few years when we work on our open enrollment and we work with our broker on that. We do that. But today, we're always finding Blue Cross Blue Shield primarily because we're self-insured and because they provide the prime therapeutics, they provide the RX side, not only the medical, but the RX, and they are providing us our stop loss insurance. And when we can receive stop loss insurance, as an example, of $1.4 million in prior year, and they're losing on it, they've lost several years in a row, they have paid out more than the amount of the premium, we have not found anything cheaper. And that also causes a lot of disruption. When we have to change the plan and go to a different provider, it is significant disruption on the employees and the dependents of it. Aside from that, even from a dollar standpoint, we look at that very hard at the insurance committee. We do have a committee with union representation, employees and administrators across the district several times during the year to look at health insurance.
All right, if there's no other comment.
I just had one comment. Mr. Altmeyer, if you could go into a little more detail on the cover page, I think it was like page 7 or 8. It stated that there's a crease in electricity costs. I thought our solar program was offsetting a lot of that. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, once upon a time, we were paying upwards of $2.4 million in energy costs here at the district. And over the years, over the last 15 years or so, we've been able to take that amount down to approximately $1.1 million before 2020. When we implemented solar with Forefront Power, and by the way, the district paid $0 for the solar arrays out there because we don't own those solar arrays. Forefront Power owns those solar arrays. The solar that we have here at the district offsets saves us approximately $220,000 a year in energy costs. So at that point in time, our energy bill went from approximately $1.1 million down to $900,000. About a year and a half ago, working with ComEd, had a carbon-free adjustment. They had an adjustment. They were actually giving back to all companies across the state of Illinois in their territory, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was called the carbon-free adjustment. And as a result of that adjustment, last year we budgeted and forecasted our energy to actually go from $900,000 to about $600,000. And I think that's almost where we ended the year in FY23. So now when we budgeted for FY24, well, we got notice from ComEd that, they were a little aggressive in their carbon-free calculation. They shouldn't, sounds like the state of Illinois. They gave us way too much. And so they're carving some of that back, and so we're not going to receive the carbon-free adjustment that we did receive in 2023. And so as a result, we're estimating that approximately we should see about $800,000 in energy costs, still lower than the $900,000 2 years previous. That's what we're expecting for 2024. So that's why we budgeted that increase, because that carbon-free adjustment is being phased out. Does that help?
Yeah, disappointing when utilities move the goal line.
But I also appreciate that it provided us at the time almost $200,000-$300,000 of savings that were really unexpected. So on both sides, I agree, and it's unfortunate that will not continue. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Allmeyer? All right, with that, we will move to number 3, public comments. Are there any public comments that anybody would like to make? We have one, public comment, Julia Pilsner.
Oh, is it, oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Hi. I just had a quick question, about the budget. I know that we were talking about a decrease in enrollment and an increase in cost. Have we done any comparison for what would be considered cost of living increases across the board? So not just teacher salary, but also Chromebooks, supplies, everything we need for our students, maintaining buildings because things have to run. We need roofs over our children's heads. We need the desks and ventilation and all the things to work. Have we looked at all that to see where that might be accounting for some of that increase? Because I know for me, just personally, in the past 5 years, prices have gone up for everything. It was like $8 for like a, carton of eggs a couple months ago, practically. This is just happening. And it's, I don't like paying $8 for eggs, but the reality is some things we get savings on, but some things we can't cut the cost to nothing. So if we're not cutting the cost to nothing, was that considered in terms of basic things like we need to meet inflation costs? Health insurance is going to go up. I'll ask a question about that in a minute. The things we need for our students, while we're still spending an incredibly low dollar amount to, offer really great education, it's still going to go up. That's just the nature of things. 10 years from now, everything's going to be more expensive. I wish it weren't, but it will be. Like, we're not going to get 50-cent cartons of eggs anymore. We're just not going to. And I'm just wondering, just to put that out there, like, what are we considering basic inflation versus, was there a differential there? Like, was only 20% of the cost of living increase for basic things that would happen regardless for any district across the board versus, no, it was just 2% and all this other percentage we have a question mark, if that makes sense. And then the other question regarding insurance, which I'm glad we do shop around, but when we're talking about insurance and we're talking about people's lives, my question would also be, are we looking at the quality of insurance that's being offered? And sick people are sick people. So I wouldn't want somebody to wonder, do we really need to spend money on my insurance? I mean, yes, we do. Like, I'm lucky, I'm not ill. I'm very lucky right now that that's not me, but that could be me. That could be you, that could be anybody. And so when we're talking about those things, I just want the humanity of that to be kept in it because it really matters when we're saying, where can we cut dollars? That's someone's cancer treatment. That's someone's, long-term care for their partner. Those are a lot of things that are expensive, but that's a life. And I think that might get lost when we're talking about, do we really need to put money towards this huge increase in healthcare, which unfortunately is not surprising, given just life in general and that some procedures were put off, but we have some sick employees. And the thing is, there are employees. And, I would want to take care of you. That's important. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I didn't know if that was something that had been discussed in terms of, quality of life, in terms of actual inflation versus just straight up dollars, because there are kids behind these dollars. There are people behind these dollars, and it's really important that we remember that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments. This is just one. I think I'll indulge the questions if Mr. Altmeyer wants to jump in a little bit too to add some color.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe we need good healthcare, and I think the discussion isn't about the quality of healthcare that we're providing there. It's really about how much we are anticipating the cost to be, and there's a discussion about where that is, whether it's a higher amount or a lower amount. Historically, it's been lower. This last year, it came in a lot higher. So is that the new normal, which is what I think Mr. Altmeyer is conservatively budgeting for, or is it something that we will revert back? In terms of inflation, inflation's all over the place. My view is when we have the employment contracts that we have with HESPA and HEA, we do have known cost increases. So that's a manageable thing. So it doesn't get affected directly by inflation, but the buildings and other things do get affected by inflation. So if you want to add it.
Yeah, I would add on the health insurance side, we talked about the health insurance committee. And within that committee, we have those discussions. And so when I mentioned disruption, when I mentioned we do as a committee try to make sure that, well, we as a committee are trying to reduce the overall health insurance expense to the plan. Now, we could do that multiple ways. We could take away benefits, right, which causes disruption in people's lives. People that were accustomed to receiving a certain, maybe medicine at a certain price is no longer eligible to receive it, and their out-of-pocket goes from maybe $500 to $2,000 or $3,000. That's what disruption is. And so we do take that into account because we know that these employees, they're family, they're part of, the team. And so we try to, on all respects of trying to save money under the plan, we talk about those things and we talk about having minimal disruption because we have pretty good health insurance plans and we're hoping to keep it that way for sure. So I would add that as well because we do have those conversations and we talk about disruption all the time when we're making any changes. I would also add on the impact of the consumer price index, the impact of the economy on everything we're doing. From capital projects, absolutely. We are seeing that in everything we do. We are seeing the price of construction for any project we do, whether it's paving, whether it's mechanical, that's the air conditioning unit on the roof. Those are all so much costlier than they were just a few years ago. So it's limiting our ability to do certain things, certainly from a capital standpoint. And we're seeing increases in everything. Supplies, right? Purchase service costs, the contracted services that we need to bring people in, maybe, whether it's an extra nurse or it's a social worker or it's a speech path or it's a psych, the rates we're seeing today are much higher than we're seeing previously. Now, the buildings have a budget, right? And they have seen decreased enrollment. We have seen decreased enrollment, but over the years, we have also kept our building budget flat. We've kept them flat because with the declining enrollment offset by the increase in prices, that's how we've kind of kept those budgets flat. And everywhere else in the budget, we do the best we can to try to make it work. The majority of the increase you're seeing in expense is salaries and benefits. So, thank you, great question.
And there's another component, and your question about insurance had my head go in a different direction. Because I've seen this where I work as well. We have to insure the buildings. That's part of insurance as well. And there's also there's another component to insurance. Cyber insurance also has become hugely, from a cost standpoint. Does it play a huge role in this overall budget? I would guess not, but it still affects cost. I've seen the property insurance where I work, and I've asked questions about it because I scrutinize that, and I was stunned by the rate of the increases in both of those categories. With regards to the buildings, they're saying because of the different properties that have been damaged nationwide for various weather-related incidents and other catastrophic situations, that's driven the cost of property insurance increasingly crazy nationwide. And so we, as a school district, and everybody as a property owner is affected by that. It's not just the school district. And then cyber insurance used to be a negligible item in any cost or in any budget. But now with the amount of ransomware that goes on, we've seen it in school districts in the Chicago area. I know Crystal Lake was affected in the last few years. There have been a couple others as well. That cyber insurance cost has been significant as well. And I don't know what the dollars and cents actually translate to, but I know percentage-wise increase year on year, that's gone up significantly.
Great point. All right, appreciate the public comment, thank you. All right, with that, I will make a motion to adjourn the budget hearing at 8:08 p.m. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Quagliano. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passed, and we will close the budget hearing. All right, we will resume the regular meeting. I will make a motion to resume the regular meeting at 8:09 p.m. on September 21st, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Craddy. Can I have a
Here.
Mr. Bittman,
Here.
Mr. Troy,
Here.
Mr. Quagliano,
Here.
Mrs. Murray. Here. Mrs. Gallagher. Here. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
All right, with that, we'll resume the regular meeting. Moving to number 8, revision and adoption of the agenda. I will make a motion to move to adopt the agenda as presented with no changes. I have a second. Thank you, Mr. Quagliano. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, with that, we will move ahead with the agenda as listed, and moving to number 9, the superintendent's report. Ms. Lombard.
All right, wanted to just first start and highlight that our district was contacted by the State Board of Education it was a week before last Friday, and Dr. Tony Sanders, our state superintendent, wanted to come out and do a site visit to see the great things that were going on in the district, as well as to congratulate the district on their Green Ribbon Award. And so we worked diligently to get something together, and we thought long and hard, and we said, we have great things that happen every day. Why are we worrying about this and stressing over this? And I think it was more the time. We only had about an hour and a half. We got them for 2 hours because our district campuses are so large. We were able to take a bus tour and visit all 3 of our campuses. We saw went to the middle school on Reed Road campus, out at high school, out on Harmony, and then ended over here at one of our elementaries on our campus over here. And we're able to kind of show and highlight some of the things that were going on. We didn't have a real theme that was going, but wanted to see some of the things outside of the regular math and reading and those kinds of everyday things that happen in all schools. And so being able to go and see and showcase and highlight some of the group work, the real problem-based learning that was happening in all 3 of our levels, kind of formulated a theme around Future Ready as we went through and we saw the different pieces that were happening in there. And as along the way, we were able to talk about some of the other components. As we know, they've been, the state is looking at a literacy plan, and so we were able to talk about and ask for input, ideas, suggestions on some of those other things that were going on. And so really very attentive to concerns and questions that we had, wanted feedback on that. And then in the building was all about the kids and the staff, and it was really neat to see that interaction there. There was that component, and so in the short amount of time, I thought it was a great visit, and we were able to highlight some of those things and also get our voice heard with that. And we welcomed him back to come anytime. I don't think he lives too far away from here, and they did have another really key thing that had happened. There were 2 staff members that came along with, and really every time we were talking about something, one worked with the different legislative bills and things, and they're like, oh, when they talk about this, that's what's happening, and could see that component about the work that they do every day and how it does impact school districts on a regular basis. And yeah, so a number of our cabinet were able to come along on that visit. We are so grateful for our staff that opened up their classrooms to allow that. It's a little nerve-wracking when you think about any administrator coming in, let alone the state superintendent with that. We were, I think, in one of the classrooms at the high school where some of the kids, what's going on? It's kind of like we're at a zoo exhibit. And I said, well, not really, but you see Dr. Reelan over there, you know who he is. Well, we think so. Yeah, no, they joked with us. And we explained who the state superintendent was, and I thought that was really cool that he was able to come out and wanted to see the great things that we have going on in Huntley. So that was a great opportunity to be able to highlight that. Today was our first early release professional development, where we were able to go through, we got a little feedback on that when we worked with we're part of a meeting with the ATA union, their building rep meeting, and they were able to talk a little bit about some of the things they did there, and it was really great to see the excitement of some of the buildings that had connections back to the first 2 days and the institute that we were doing, so it wasn't like a one-and-done PD, and then it was set off to the side, that we will have those regular visits, but I'm going to leave all the real details to Dr. McCrindle in a little bit with Learning and Innovation, because their team worked diligently on that with the buildings. Another part I just wanted to kind of bring to light and highlight was last week we had a parent concern that came up and had some questions at the high school around the revised Sex Ed Act. Wanted to clarify the district's stance on that. Here in our district, and we talked about this in the spring, is that we use, and jump in if I use the wrong terminology, is we teach the comprehensive health education. It's what we've always done through our health courses, in that there's a variety of different topics that are talked about in there. There was a revised act, and that is the comprehensive personal health and safety at the K-5 level, and the comprehensive sexual health at the secondary level of that. And if you recall, the district stance at that point was we were not going to adopt that revised. We were going to teach what we always had been teaching. There were very few districts that were moving in that direction that we found out later. But so I do want to just come back and clarify that through the talking the school with the parents, and then coming through and working with Dr. McCrindle and I and the school on that. We did uncover a couple of components with that, just in full transparency. With the health class, there was, I will say, I truly believe it was a misinterpretation of one of the lines that has to do with our national standards, if we had adopted and that revised act. And hadn't been taught, but it was talked about as part of some of the coursework that may be coming up with that component. And so we looked into how did that happen. Again, no blame on anybody. I think it was an individual that in one of our departments, not here, but was, I believe, good personal intent and read the part of that law a little bit inaccurately on that. Dr. McCrindle and I have worked with the high school, with our departments, to make sure that everybody's fully aware that we have not adopted that, so we will be teaching what we have always been taught. Because if a change was going to happen, it would be coming through our curriculum review, which would be coming through as part of an adoption here with the Board of Education. And so did want to clarify, I do understand from various perspectives when we look at some of the different pieces on how that happened. Hey, how's this in here when we've stated these components? I do, again, want to stress that I think it was a misinterpretation in there. Nothing that was trying to be snuck in, it's not going to occur. We have resolved that, and we are looking through, making sure as different curriculum mandates come through, different policies come through, that we really do highlight what those are and more in depth, so that the board is able to understand that, the public is able to understand those components as we move forward. But I do want to thank that parent. Actually, we had 2 different calls on 2 different topics that day, and we were able to work through that, and we'll be looking at really coming up. Dr. McCrindle and her team have worked on a curriculum opt-out for the 7 areas that they're able to without having to have any rational reasoning for that. And then what that looks like for some other mandates that might be of a personal preference and how we would handle those things. And so we're going to bring that forward later as we iron that component out to make sure that families are aware of that, staff are aware of that, and again, to apologize about what had happened there. We were able to resolve that before any of the teaching and implementation had occurred on there, but the board will always be involved in those pieces with changes around our curriculum mandates and whatnot. And the last one's really not an update, but a request of the board. One of the things when we're going to come back and hopefully approve our strategic plan, and we've talked about a lot of the KPIs that have to do with so many things that are going to provide great opportunities for our students and staff. And nothing against any stakeholder here, but I think our most important stakeholder is our students. And I've just been thinking about what are different opportunities and ways that we can get more student voice. Actually, was in a Zoom meeting, and I'm gonna not take full, I'm gonna tweak, but stealing an idea from another district and looking at, we've seen some districts where they will have a student kind of ambassador for the board, and maybe we get down there down the road. We have to kind of look through how that would work and all of that. But we have a variety of cabinet level presentations, updates. We We've got the superintendent update, the board president update, and then our different committees. I would really like to implement a student update, and how that would look, that each month that we would work with a different building, and whether it be one student or a few students with some guided, facilitated questions. You know, if you think about the K-2 buildings, they might need a little assistance with that, but really, what is from their perspective in the learning environment, the great things that are going on, and for students to be able to give us an update, and really have that voice from them. And so, can't add that, it's your board meeting, but I would really, really love to be able to add a student update section to one of our 2 board meetings moving forward. It's good for that.
I think it's an outstanding idea.
Yeah.
Was Mr. Altmeyer foreshadowing that when he was trying to bring the Raider Nation, to listen to his budget?
Sure, yes, we'll go with that. Very good. If everybody's good with that, we'll kind of try to implement that in October then. Great. Any questions or concerns about any of the other updates?
All right, we'll move on to number 10, Dr. Pringle.
Good evening. My first update is regarding some of the professional learning that's occurring right now throughout our district. As Ms. Lombard shared, today was our first early release day. I want to just highlight some of the focuses of what our staff were learning and discussing. So at the ECC, it was their first parent education day, and they focused on some curriculum and program offerings at their level, and families had the opportunity to go look in classrooms, take a look at different stations and activities they would do. They did a make and take activity where they could make something to take home to work with their students at home to help that collaboration. And so it was a great time for parents to come into our schools and get to kind of see what we do here. Our K-12 special services staff were able to work on some professional development related to curriculum at different levels. And our related service providers are able to meet as a department across the district and in different groups. And that very rarely occurs because we're able to have this time. So they definitely value that. At the K-8 level, we continue the behavior management support that we've been focusing on. Many buildings provided staff with CHAMP mini lessons and sessions that they could either choose from or were pertinent to what the building has chosen to focus on with their school improvement plans. They supported the day 1 training, and so it's that ongoing support. So like Ms. Lombard said, we're not just dropping PD, we're trying not to and just let it be done. We want to keep that going and supporting our students. They also started discussing some criteria for how we could start to measure the impact of our professional learning with CHAMP specifically, which is new to us as a staff to really have some walkthroughs and look for some components. And so some buildings are further along than others in that, but they started that conversation. At the high school level, they use this time to dive into some of the STAR, which is our assessment reading for math, our universal screener data. And then they also had time to review some walkthrough data that the admin had been doing in their classrooms regarding and related to the behavior management supports at the high school level, following that CHAMP STOIC framework. The light staff were able to participate in some goal setting and aligning processes to set themselves up for the targeted technical system that they're going to be applying for, and Dee Dee will provide some updates coming up in the future on that, I'm sure. And then our paras and non-certified staff had some time to work on some GCN trainings because there's some mandatory trainings we need to do, and they got some time to complete that during this afternoon. So it was a very productive day, a lot of learning going on, and we're also preparing for our October 6th full Institute Day coming up. You'll see some similar themes. K-5 CHAMP is going to keep being a focus there. At the elementary level, they have some choice sessions for teachers revolving around some of our curricular initiatives. So from our strategic plan, but teachers are going to choose a couple of ones that they want to attend. At the 6-12 level, they are kicking off their science of reading training, Mr. Truax and his team has worked really hard to try to make this applicable to every different content area as much as they can. And so they're going to start with a focus on why it's important, because we want to provide all students the opportunity to read and learn in our classrooms, and then dive into some vocabulary work, which would be great across the board for a lot of reasons. And then also we'll have some time at the building level to focus on their school improvement plans and their needs that they have. In addition to that, we've continued some professional learning with math at the K-12 level. So we've had representatives from Carnegie Math coming into classrooms, and teachers have been able to watch them teach their students at the 6-12 level and have time to reflect on what they're seeing and getting that input. The same with the Math Institute of Wisconsin coming into the elementary classrooms, very similar work there. And then our teacher leaders and instructional coaches have been receiving some targeted professional learning, focusing on building their capacity to be leaders, because our goal is to empower our teachers to be able to lead their teams and make some great decisions and have a voice. And so Paige, who we've been working with from Building Capacity LLC, has been working with them on that work. And I just want to give a shout out, because I might miss the group and I apologize if I do, but there are so many different positions who work so hard to help our professional learning occur. So our instructional coaches, our MTSS facilitators, our family engagement staff that we have, some of our behavior specialists, our assistive tech facilitators, and then our building and district admin to provide these experiences. So thank you guys for all your support in providing our staff the opportunity to learn. We take it seriously and we try to really capitalize that time. So I just wanted to give you that update on that. And my second topic is just regarding MTSS data meetings. So we just finished our first round of, I mentioned this earlier, our universal screeners for reading and math using our STAR assessment for kindergarten through 11th grade. At the end of these assessments, our teacher teams gather around the data, and it's led by our MTSS facilitators and their building admin to discuss student results and determine what supports we need to provide students in different levels in our buildings. So generally speaking, if a student's on level at Tier 1, we think that what we're doing in the classroom is working for our students and they don't really need additional support. If a student is flagged for some Tier 2 support, which they just need a little bit more, that might be delivered by a classroom teacher or a paraprofessional to give them a little more guidance beyond what they're getting in the classroom. And then if students need more significant support, we go to that Tier 3 supports, which are more intensive interventions, either with a certified staff or some of our paraprofessionals that are for our bilingual staff to really help support our students and try to close some gaps in learning as much as we can. And so this year, we did make a shift in our MTSS meetings to not just include our STAR data, but our state assessment data as well. So our IAR scores, because we want to look at both together. And so that's been a shift for us, which our teachers have at the 3rd through 8th grade level have appreciated, being able to look at that data and see what the state is telling us compared to our local data. And I just want to tell, give Ms. Moan, Ms. Bonjo Jordan, and Mrs. Spears a thank you for their support in leading those MTSS data processes. And we just continue to get better and better, in my opinion, at having those meetings, and we really find those valuable. So those are my updates. I'll take any questions.
You're good. Thank you. Like I should, but I think we'll move on. So Ms. Gill.
Okay. All right. So I just have a couple of general updates for all the work that's being done in special services. I'll do some updates on our LIGHT program development, SEAC, which is our Special Education Advisory Committee, and also Special Olympics, which has been a great joy to be talking a lot about. So in terms of our LIGHT steering committee, we had our most recent meeting was Wednesday, September 6th. We discussed our vision for locations to support students in our transition programs. And we were in communication with our regional Office of Education, and we have a follow-up meeting with them tomorrow to get some updates on what next steps we can take so that we can come to the board with some recommendations here in these coming months about next steps. So we're very excited about that. I feel like there's some good movement, a lot of positive participation and great input from families, board members, staff across the board. So just really grateful for that. Our next meeting is October 4th from 5 to 6 at the district office, and we'll continue to have updates following. Our Special Education Advisory Committee first meeting was yesterday. It was a time for us to come together, discuss our vision for the SEAC committee, what goals we want to accomplish around those 5 key priority areas that we've discussed, I believe, at my first board meeting when I was here. Those key priority areas that the SEAC committee had identified in previous years, but aligning with our indicators for our strategic plan. So those key priority areas, to remind you, are areas of communication, knowledge of special education, resources, culture and climate, and inclusion. And so in all of those areas, there are ideas that we generated and brainstormed how we as a community can improve special education services and connection in those 5 key areas. We're very excited about the things to come there. And again, always appreciate, we have incredible families offering their perspectives that is unbelievably valuable. So our next meeting for SEAC is October 18th, 2023 at 4:30 to 5:30 at the district office. And you're going to ask Mr. Bittman down there. Went back and checked. Special Olympics is one of the most exciting updates, and I'm just going to give you highlights, but you know, our special services administrative team is very excited to begin really making action steps toward how do we make this happen in our district. So I want to just acknowledge the directors of elementary and secondary have been working very closely with our assistant principal of student services at Marlowe, Ms. Teresa Brandt, and our special services coordinator at Cheswick, Ms. Crystal Miguel, both of those administrators are new to our district, but have some experience with Special Olympics, which is very exciting. They will be going to our Region B Special Olympics meeting Thursday, October 5th in Lake Zurich, and they are meeting weekly to map out our proposed plans to get Special Olympics up and running. Our hope is that by the spring, at least at the middle school level, we'd be able to at least offer an event. But there are things we need to work through. We have to have a plan and make some of those decisions together. But I just want to let you know that we are really making progress, and we've been in communication with some family members who have been here to speak at the board, just to keep them abreast of where we are, and also we'll have opportunities for all of our parents to participate in that. So I'm really excited for the update. I won't give it, but I'm going to make them come and get that when we have it, okay? So those are my exciting updates, and as always, my pleasure to talk about the things happening in special education.
Any comments? Thank you very much for those updates. Appreciate that. All right, so number 12 is Dr. Shazier.
Good evening. One of the most important payrolls of the school year happens September 10th. This is when we see a lot of our folks receive their pay raises and salary adjustments. So our HR team, hats off to them, and hats off to the payroll team upstairs for making sure all of the raises and everything get uploaded and folks are receiving the correct pay come September 10th. So we spend a few days after that answering questions from employees, understanding, what their pay is and everything. So that's a very important time as we come off of Labor Day to get that payroll up and going with processing lane changes and the rate increases that take place. So we've been very busy with that. Also, at your place, I want to draw attention to a couple of forms there. The first one, the IMRF report. So the IMRF report that you're going to see there, that's a one-pager. Anyone that is in the IMRF category that has total compensation over $75,000, you will see listed there for the 23-24 school year. And you will also see the administrator and teacher salary report, a few more pages there with the salaries projected for 23-24. We're presenting that to the board before October 1st, and we'll also be posting that to the website here pretty soon. So making sure we're in compliance with that ISB law. We will update the 23-24 as we go throughout the year based on folks that go on leave and things like that. Registration for health screenings is currently taking place. It's our 7th year for the health screenings. We started back in 2017. We had 267 employees that participated on the health screening. The folks log into a portal through CHC, also supported by Northwestern, and they do a survey. It's not a quick survey, because it's Ms. Barr, it's a long survey. After they do that survey, they're allowed to sign up for a blood draw that comes onto our campuses here in October. They can also do that off-site as of now through November. So like I said, back in 2017, when we first launched it, Mr. Altmeyer and I actually went building to building to sell this. We had 267 employees. Right now, we've got 549 signed up. Mr. Altmeyer and I are not going building to building, so that didn't work. So 549 is where we're sitting at right now. Our biggest year was actually 2020 in that fall, with 656 who participated. So I'm always aiming to clip that number, but usually we see, when I monitored that, when we sent the communication out, I want to say within the first hour, we had like 250 people signed up. So a few more days to do that. We'll send out one more reminder next week. And then as Mr. Altmeyer was speaking about health insurance rates, we have our health insurance committee meeting next week that our broker from Alliant will be presenting. We'll be presenting those new health insurance rates. Those will be coming to the board at the committee as a whole for discussion. And those rates go into effect January 1, 2024. I'll take any questions about any of those updates.
How long has Alliance been our broker? And do we shop that around?
They've been with us for 7 years. And we haven't seen a need at this point to shop that around. We have entertained a few folks, because they will sell some things to us or present some things to us. But when Mr. Altmeyer and myself kind of dive into things, not what we're looking for. So if you want to speak to that, I know we've talked to.
Yeah, no, we have definitely looked around, but I know our current brokers held our rates flat for a really long time. And knowing what's out there, because I talked to a lot of other CFOs of other school districts for what they are paying their broker, we're a good deal. I will say that. If we went out and shopped, we'd be paying a lot more for a broker. And more than likely, they would be subject to be, if they negotiate on our behalf, a lot of brokers actually receive rebates from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from Prime Therapeutics, from our dental providers. When we negotiated with Alliant back in the day, we said, yeah, no, we want the absolute best pricing we can get from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from our dental providers, from our insurance providers. So there will be no sharing of rebates. The rebates will lower our overall cost. So we've got a sweet deal with Alliant, and they're doing a great job for us.
They have not increased their rate in the last 7 years until last week. They proposed a rate increase, but
I didn't know that was coming, by the way. I asked that question. I just want to make that.
I have countered it. And Mr. Altmeyer was surprised at my counter, but we've countered it, so we'll see what happens. But they haven't increased our rate in 7 years, which
They deserve an increase.
whatever, right? But we countered back to keep it flat. So we'll see what happens.
Any other questions? And we will move to Ms. Murray for Community Relations and Student Outreach.
Thank you. I don't have anything to really update or report. However, I did want to touch on the FOIA requests. I don't know if there's any questions on those that we got, and we got a few of those, or 4 or so. I wanted Ms. Denise Barr to give us an update on the status of the FOIA's results being public. So go right ahead.
Sure, yes, good evening, board. In the interest of transparency and trying to make sure that the public has access to documents and information and for a better understanding of our procedures, our decision-making, we are looking at ways that we can post our FOIA requests and fulfilled requests on our website. And, you know, what I'm finding, I've reached out to numerous districts, and I'm doing in the research phase right now, but this can be done by ourselves, on our own, in sort of a very simplistic format. Or some districts actually use an outside, like, third-party vendor to kind of manage the FOIA process, and then also to make public a database of sorts. So just in the process still of gathering information, and then hope to be able to bring some things back to the board in October.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you for that, Ms. Murray. All right, number 14, President's Report. So just a couple of updates here. I guess the first one is last month, or maybe even last meeting, we had outlined, and there was an email sent out about the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee. Just a quick update, because I asked Ms. Lombard about it, and I think we received many dozens.
Yes, we're very excited, so go ahead, not close.
That's right, and it's still open, so if those of you who would like to participate in that, so we'll have to figure out some of the decision-making on that, but we've had a lot of people join that, which is really good to hear that. The second one is, for me, a little bit more sad to announce, which is Ms. Gina Gallagher has submitted her resignation. She will be moving to the sunny state of Florida with her husband. And just some of the facts around that, she will be resigning as of tomorrow. We will let the regional Office of Education know that this opening is available, which is something we need to do. And then we will be looking for folks who would like to be on the board, and similar to the past openings, we'll do a round of interviews. We'll ask for a cover letter, resume, and then we'll do a round of interviews for that. So looking for that. I think there's an email probably going out, or a press release.
Yep, we'll probably just need, from the board, how long you'd like that, left open so that we can, look at a date to go ahead and do interviews. So, I believe the last time this was, it was pretty short, maybe more than 2 weeks, I think it was open to collect that.
Weeks, fair.
Okay.
With that, I'll say a few comments about just my time with Gina and thank her. So as she heads off literally into the sunset, I've known Gina for probably actually a little bit less than a year. And we got to know each other through running for the board this year. She brought great insight into the special education world for myself. My eyes were opened quite a bit by the different discussions we had. When we first sat down, meeting a parent, both of us didn't know. Somebody just reached out to us, and we met at the tea place downtown Huntley.
Yep.
And it was just, she has a mannerism and knowledge and approach that just made a distinct impression on me. From that moment, it was clear Gina was going to bring a lot of insight into this board role. We've continued to meet with parents and others together through the campaign and as board members. We did not always see eye to eye, but she absolutely had my respect from that first moment. It is important to agree or disagree agreeably, and that's something that we're trying to push on the board as we go through this. There are a lot of opinions, but truly through the campaign and this time on the board, I can say with certainty we have argued, prayed together, shared tears together, and we have laughed a lot together. In her time on the board, she has taken the chair of the Special Education Committee into something that wasn't there before, into something, which I believe is important to keep here in this district. I'm sorry you're moving away. We were just getting started. However, I know you and Patrick will do incredible things down in Florida where you both have been called. I wish you both good luck, and thank you for your service on the Huntley PA board.
Thank you.
So I wrote something up so it doesn't sound fluid that way. But I'm like, I wanted to totally kind of embrace how I view you, and your work you've done here. So Gina Gallagher, in the short time as a school board member, you have left your mark on our community. It is not often that we come across individuals who embody such a unique combination of qualities: passion, fearlessness, loyalty, caring nature, and an unwavering commitment. As you step down from your role as school board member, please know that your impact will be felt long after you leave. We are grateful for your service, and we will miss your presence dearly. Thank you, Gina, for being a true champion of education and for your commitment of making our schools a better place. I wish you all the best in the future endeavors. God bless you, and may your passion continue to light the way for others.
All right. Thank you, Gina. Do you have any words to say?
I do. Thank you. When I was elected to the D1CH school board, I never dreamed my time would be so short. Moving was never on the agenda when I decided to run, but we have to go where we're called. Even though my time has been short on the board, I've accomplished much. I have brought awareness to the need to focus on academics, like reading, writing, math, science, and social studies to increase student achievement. We now have a special education committee focusing on the great things that our special education department is doing. I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of the department. I've not wavered in my support of the teachers and the staff. I'm confident that negotiations will go well and teachers will finally be paid in line with neighboring districts. While I wish my time here was longer to meet with more parents and community members, I've been a voice, I hope, for all who have come to me. I would not be here if it were not for the huge supports in my life. First and foremost, my husband, Patrick, whose love and understanding is second to none. I love you, honey. I know you're watching tonight. He's packing, so he couldn't be here tonight. Thank you for doing that. I could not have done this without you and the support of my family, especially my sons, Tim and Sean, and their wives, Amanda and Sammy. The support of my campaign team was incredible, and I thank them all from the bottom of my heart. To Andy, Mike, and Laura, what a ride it's been. From the crazy campaign to the election, it's been an honor serving with you. I know that you will continue to work on the campaign promises and goals we set. Your friendship has meant so much to me. To Jessica, it's been a pleasure serving with you. You are a phenomenal leader, and I hope to hear that you are named superintendent. You have a love for this district, the community, and the students and staff that is commendable, and your friendship has also meant the world to me. To Amy, Dee Dee, and Denise, your leadership, along with Jessica's, is going to take this district to the next level. Amy, your kindness and friendship has also meant so much to me. To those who have come against me or sought to slander me, like those on No Hate in Huntley or Huntley Breaking News, and to those who emailed or sent DMs asking when I would be resigning, and always and asking me to not vote on the budget, I have 3 words for you. Good always wins. Thank you again to all my supporters. I wish you all the best and hope you remember that the primary purpose of the school district is to educate the students to be happy, healthy, and fully functioning members of society. God bless you all. God bless America. And God bless District 158. Thank you. All I got.
We know this is the president update, but since we got this today, I didn't have that for my update too. Jean, I know it seems short, but it's almost been a half a year. It's been 5 months, and I know many people have only seen you in twice a month, right, at the board meetings, and so many of us got to know you who hadn't known you previously through all the work and other meetings and updates and things like that. And from one educator to another, I know you're going to do great things down there. I definitely see that passion for students and staff, and so what you've done here, you'll take there just in a different role and in a different aspect with that. Many of us have gotten to see that side of you, and I know that your passion for the students and the staff in this district and the community were very real. And what you were able to do, it wasn't just for special education, it was for all students and all staff in all of our areas and departments. And so it too, in that short amount of time, it has been great. I'm sure that we will all be able to stay in touch and hear about the things there, and that you will be a cheerleader for this district even from afar. And so I do appreciate very much your dedication and your service and everything that you have done for all of us in this short amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for all of that. 14.1, board discussion, any new business items people would like to bring up? Okay, we will move on. Number 15, the consent agenda. So all of these have been brought up from the committee of the whole. So I would make a motion to seek approval for the consent agenda as outlined in the agenda under number 15. Thank you, Mr. Craddy. Can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
No, he's.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
I said yes.
I'll say yes.
Oh, great, sorry.
I'll say yes too. The order got messed up. All right, with that, all of these pass, so move down. Flip through here to, number 16, action items, on this. So we'll start with, 16.1, the supplemental purchase orders. Mr. Allman.
Nothing to add.
All right, so, I'll make a motion to seek approval for these as presented.
Seconded.
All right, can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Bittman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
That the motion passes. 16.2, the updated strategic planning measures. Ms. Plummer.
Yes, in the packet, we went ahead and put back the recommendations for the strategic plan indicators with some highlights there, highlighting the just the updates or changes based on the guidance and feedback, and so we would definitely appreciate those. In long-term goal 1, the all students achieve personal growth and development, went back and looked at trying to put into a percentage. With that, not having our actual percent back and where our students have fallen from last year, but looking at those components, looking at for that increase of 3 to 5%. Again, a little bit of that range just because of some of the nuances with how data is represented, but we definitely heard and had grappled with that whole idea of a percentage, and then maybe from here, moving forward, future indicators will be able to kind of hone that down a little bit into more of just a 1% there. Then looking at long-term goal number 3, a couple of, again, thinking about that SMART goal type setting, the percent of chronically absent, took what our percentage was that we had averaged out before we get it from the school report card, which should be very soon. Based on our data, it was about a 20% to decrease that from 20% to 16%. And then KPI 4.4, adding to the component for the actively facilitated and engaged families in district-wide special education events. We put some, for examples, with the Special Olympics and the parent liaison-led sessions there. And then there was one request from a couple to look at something in the operation area. And so Mr. Ed Kosick had worked on a goal here. We know it was embedded in our operational efficiencies, but that's a variety of departments in here, and so a recommended CPI that we have in here, KPI, sorry about that, survey of all budget, right? Survey of all customers, including staff and administration in all District 158 facilities on the indoor environmental quality and the facility space they occupy within the district. That data would then be utilized for determining focus on investing capital project dollars to best serve enhancements of the educational experiences of the students. So as we take that learning environment, getting some of that data in there, that indoor air quality, as we get some of that feedback, and then maybe honing down more specifically. But having that data would help us when we're looking at potential capital project dollars and how to utilize that, because we'd have some tangible data rather than just some of what our perceptions or assumptions would be. And then not on here because it's not an update with that KPI. We've talked a little bit about the dashboard. We love the idea of how to show some of that. Some of these KPIs will definitely be able to show a percent. When we talk about attendance, we can do that on a monthly basis with some type of a graphic. Some of these may be showing zero growth until some things are moving along. When we talk about, you know, some of the things in our strategic plan area about comprehensive reviews of whether it's our dual language program or our special services curriculum and programming, that might look a little bit differently on that dashboard. So we're talking as a cabinet what that might look like. But we love that idea and being able to see that visual, not only for you as the board, the community, and the staff as we move forward. And so we'll be developing that and getting that up there as we move forward. So, that dashboard was very well received, so thank you for that. Any questions on those updates?
I'll just make a comment. I appreciate the updates, and I know it's work to go through that and update it, but, I think they're good updates.
Perfect, yeah.
So with that, I'll make a motion to, seek approval, as Ms. Lombard, has presented, the strategic planning measures. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Roll call vote.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Pittman?
Yes?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yep.
That is approved, and we'll move on to 16.3, Mr. Altmeyer.
Nothing else to add at this time.
Any comments from the board? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to make an amendment to the budget. I've actually got two of them, but I'll go through the rationale for them. So I believe in the budget, there is roughly $10,000 from the Illinois Secretary of State's office for a library grant. We've talked about that. I think there's a grant for that. And my request here, with a motion for, is to pull that out of the budget and make that a specific item that we bring to the board. And here's my rationale for that. In the previous years, this budget did not have many strings attached to it. With the passing of House Bill 2789, there are strings attached to this money right now. And before we approve it, I think it's important for the board to understand how the process will change in book selection, in our libraries, and how that's going to be handled. Because when I read the bill, quite frankly, it looks like it is guaranteeing access to all digital content, which I read as a web page, any books, and while providing a privacy guarantee for every kindergartner in the district, which means their parents wouldn't know what they're on there, which means what's on the Chromebooks might not be valid anymore. So I want to understand what the district's opinion is on this, to come up with a proposal and a policy of how they would handle this bill before we go ahead and go for this grant money. So with that, I will make a motion that we remove the grant money from the Illinois Secretary of State Library Grant in our budget and table it for another meeting, and we can couple it with the process. So can I have a second?
Second.
All right, with that, can I get any discussion?
Yeah. So my question would be, and what you're saying, and I agree, but why wouldn't you go ahead and have it in your budget, but make it contingent upon going through steps, not just going for the grant without board approval based on understanding the law, type of thing. That's where I'm going. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, it's not so much the money to me, it's really I want to make sure that before we go in after this grant, we have a discussion, so we all have read the bill and we all understand the process for it. So that's really my goal.
No,
Maybe
right.
we can talk through that.
Right, so that grant hasn't been applied for yet?
No, not that I'm aware of, and it's only budgeted in this current budget at $7,118.
Yeah, and I don't think Mr. Bittman's objection is for the money issue so much as it, and that's why I'm saying, leave it in the budget, but just make it known here that, to whoever is responsible for applying for that grant, that we want further knowledge of that at a future board meeting as to what the strings are attached with that grant.
So with the way that grant has worked in the past, it operates reimbursement for prior years. So we need to do some unraveling to figure out that when you applied for it last year, you're really getting to get funds for, you have to submit funds for 2 years ago. It's always been a weird grant that I'm always at $10,000. It's a fun one to unravel. So I do want to look into that, and I don't know how that would impact because we would have applied for something that we might be getting reimbursement for this year, which I'm sure this probably redirects. I don't know enough about it to be able to answer that right now. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Quagliano understands my point is I just don't want to I don't think we should sign up to the strings that are attached to this without fully understanding what the impact is.
Right. Right.
But is it a matter of the grant's already been done, and we're now in midstream of receiving revenues for a grant that's already been processed? Because the grants operate on multiple years, and like you said, you have to go back a couple, so that tells me this isn't the beginning of the grant, this is somewhere in the middle, and this is $7,500, so it's just wonky to me.
And
I think we need to have, yeah,
so I'm sure there's something strange, I definitely need to dive into this.
Yeah.
I don't know much about
So
it.
we'll look at that, we'll bring that back because, also would have changed if it is kind of retroactive, if you will, in you're getting this to pay that, from previous years. We look at those reimbursement components and when this law took place, kind of would have been in the middle. So let us go ahead and bring that. I don't think moving the, or approving that, would have that impact, because then we can look at either not taking those funds, or is there
Or not
a
applying for a
reimbursement back, or
future
yeah.
grant.
So we'll look at those, and, that would be, I would agree on that recommendation, but we will definitely bring back a little bit more in-depth research on what is this on the grant, and what does that mean overall for the district.
Thank you.
So, I mean, the motion's been made, the motion's been seconded, we're gonna have to have a vote on it. I'm just as a discussion point, gonna say.
I'll withdraw the motion. If that-
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine, I absolutely, by all means. Administration should follow through with that, but I would not remove it from the budget because it's, I think, money receiving as a reimbursement from a prior year.
Yeah, I just think it's understood that this is something that needs to come to the board to understand the process change.
Sure.
Okay.
And Amy, while you're digging, you're good at that. Can you check on, the young adult age, requirements? Because I know that's changed. I believe the ALA has changed it to 12 to 18 when it was previously 18 to 24. That's a huge concern.
Yeah, everybody.
All right, so I guess the other thing, and before I make a motion, I'd like to have some discussion around the amount of the levy increase that ends up in the budget. So again, not surprising, we've had the discussion in the budget hearing about this, and we've had discussion previously on this. Again, with the additional evidence-based funding that we've received from the state, I do think it's reasonable, and I will be framing my motion to really focus on, yes, reducing the levy amount, but also focusing on the expense side, because the levy vote is in December, and we'll have a lot more information on what we will need on the revenue side in December. So I want to understand that the focus here is on trying to make sure that we're focused on the expense side and doing that. And there's two ways to look at that. One, let's not spend money, but let's also try to create a surplus this year potentially with that, so we can do that. We can use that money for other things. In my opinion, it would be prioritizing some of the negotiations that are going on. So that's my argument. If we're open to it, let's have a little bit of discussion about it before.
Would you like me to make a motion first? Oh, okay. I'd rather discussion on what you see before you get to where you're going.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, the motion it would have an abatement down to 3%. So again, I would understand that we would continue that out for the out years. On that, we would just be reducing the amounts that we would have available to us this year.
Okay, so I guess I don't think we're fundamentally, again, in disagreement. I'm concerned about is this specific piece is just focused on passing this budget, which has stated revenues, stated expenditures. The piece you're talking about is, as you pointed out, is a more of an action item that takes place in December in regards to abatement. So I guess what I'm going to ask you is, are you wanting to make a motion that ties this budget approval contingent upon ultimately stating that we'll make some kind of a abatement that ultimately nets down
So I would like the expenditures to be reduced such that if we had a 3% levy, we would be at, a surplus. So it is, because there's a lot of discussion about the levy and the tax revenue.
No, what you're saying is, I'd like to reduce the revenue in this budget, the revenue, because you're saying you're okay with passing this budget with those revenues. Understanding these revenues are contingent upon a 5% operating funds levy that will occur in December, but you want to modify the expenditure side of this budget so that it would accommodate a potential only 3%.
Correct, that's exactly right. And then we could take 5-6 months, we could see where the medical expenses are and see where we're trending. We can look at that as we get closer and closer to the levy. And other actions that may happen during that time.
Okay, so would you still be wanting to approve this budget as is? Because you can amend the budget at a later date. Okay, and if you're looking to say, here, I'll approve this budget today as is, but the idea being, I'd like an amended budget at some point, when we're getting into that December timeframe, that more accommodates the 3% type of, scenario. Is that something you think that's?
So I guess I'm not sure what the difference would be if we just amended the budget now to lower the expense.
I mean, you can.
And I don't know what the difference would be. I'm trying to understand your proposal.
No, I'm just trying to figure out whether you need to see that now versus in the future.
My goal is to kind of set the expectation for Ms. Lombard and the rest of the cabinet to look at the budget and continue to scrutinize it, because we have a lot of big expenses potentially coming up to us, and I'd like to make sure we understand that, and we're looking at it. To my previous comments, the budget expense side has creeped up as we receive more opportunities for revenue.
So, I follow 100% saying, but I think your issue is I need my calculator. I don't need a calculator.
Well, 2% approximates $1.6 million. To cut $1.6 million out of this budget would, trying to find a place to cut $1.6 million of expense.
I mean, I hear.
While we need to file a budget report with the state of Illinois, we need to indicate the exact line items for which that will happen.
Yes.
When the majority, 77% of our expenses are salaries and benefits, we cannot lay off employees and reduce headcount.
So to be clear, nobody said that.
Well,
Got to come from somewhere, though.
yeah, and capital expenses are already accounted for the current year. Purchase services, large purchase services or supplies, whether it's energy or it's food or it's supplies that we need in the classroom. While we're the lowest spending and we've kept those budgets flat in the building, there's not a lot of places to cut 1.6 million other than headcount. And we would just be setting ourselves up for failure, because we cannot just simply reduce headcount 1 or 2 months into the year.
Nobody is suggesting that.
Well, I'm just realistically.
So, Mr. Allmeyer, if you will. We just had a discussion in the budget hearing about the biggest expense increase, which was the increase in healthcare expense, which is it is an estimate that you're using from last year. And how much did it go up? It went up $1,342,073. And that is just in the last 4 weeks since you last produced a budget.
Well, if you're suggesting we reduce the health insurance expense by $1.6 million, and you would like to do that, I would just highly advise you against it, because I don't think we're gonna end up with $1.6 million favorable on that line item.
So,
And we're jeopardizing, if we have a strategic planning goal to remain sustainable, and we have a strategic planning goal to get back to recognition status, I don't think we will be able to do that.
what is the surplus that is in the current budget that you're projecting?
600,000.
Almost 700,000, right?
600.
Okay. So where did you get that we would have to cut health insurance by 1.6 million again?
we were talking about simply reducing,
Revenue.
well, we were reducing 5% down to 3%, which came up with 1.6 million, because 2% on the levy is 1.6 million.
You're saying.
Approximately.
I'm saying if you take the surplus and you apply that, then you're
Okay.
under $1 million.
Right.
And then you're still adding,
I understand.
the buffer of the healthcare expenses. You're still accruing more than you did last year. You may have spent more, but you are accruing more. So the question is this year going to be?
If the question is, to create a $1.6 million surplus, we could do that by lowering the health insurance.
Yeah, correct.
Totally understand that.
Yep.
So we don't need to create a 1.6
But
million.
whether we leave the operating surplus at where it is, 653, or 1.6 million, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if we have a surplus, that surplus will be in fund balance. So I would highly recommend that if we're gonna pass a budget, we pass a realistic budget.
So again,
And so my recommendation, and I think administration's recommendation, is a realistic budget, which is the budget before you for FY '24.
right, and I will argue that the budget that you presented to us as a realistic budget and a conservative budget, 2-3 months ago, had a much lower expectation there.
I think one of the things with the health insurance, with probably be more information after that health insurance committee meeting and the broker meeting coming forward with, data from the actuary and all of those components there that maybe has helped to have that recommendation increase there. We'll know more. We've asked them to go back. They're coming back with some, data or whatnot. That will go into effect in January, so that is part of this budget there. So if there are additional costs or all of those things, definitely, know that the board would like us to look at that, component of our expenditures. And we will continue to do that. We're looking at our operational efficiency this year. What can we do with that component? We can much, better make a larger impact on that in next year's budget, based on some of the things we've got here with, there's our operational efficiency, strategic plan, things that we're doing. Some of that will take place here. Some of those other components with lowering of, enrollment, what does that do with attrition and some of those costs, that will definitely help in next year's budget. I think we'll know a little bit more, and, as Mr. President said, we will be able to make, amendments to our budget as we go through, even if it is, adopted and approved as is here, but we can make those changes at that point. We'll know a little bit more as we go month by month, with that health insurance component. Based on what you guys have heard, though, from our broker, is that we will probably be seeing more than an increase than even what.
But I'm okay, I'm okay if you wanna reduce the budgeted health insurance by $1 million to show a $1.6 million operating surplus, I'd be okay with that. If you're saying, I know that that's not the specific, I think you're looking for other potential savings and other operating expense items, but from an expeditious standpoint, to get this to work, without having to go line item by line item on stuff, I'm okay with that, having been more on that expense, having moved it up, the expeditious way to accomplish. So, might be, make a motion.
So to be clear, unless anybody else wants to jump in here, what you're describing, I just want to make sure I clarify and understand it, would be leave it at the 5%, and reduce the amount that we're increasing the healthcare claim expense. Instead of 1.342, we would do it at 342,000. So, and for those who are listening, if you're thinking we are reducing the amount that is available to the healthcare, but this is there's still $14 million that's being put into the healthcare, right? And it is still going up from what he was originally budgeted 3-4 months ago. And, just understand that that is going up, not down, on with that. So as I sit here, I'm okay with that. All right, any other, comments? I don't know, Mike or, Gina or Laura or Sean or Paul.
I see this as kind of a worthless effort. You're shuffling things to make it look rosy on this line, and then we're gonna go through the year, and if it goes tracking to how everybody was saying in the first place, then we're gonna show that we've overshot the moon on healthcare expenses again. Well, the idea of the budget is to provide us with a plan, not to nail it 100% with accuracy. So I just see this as kind of like shuffling the deck chairs. It is what it is, and it's not about trying to make a nice rosy budget with contract negotiations coming up. So this is
My original intent was
pointless.
it was actually a $0 surplus, not 1.6. But
Yeah.
I understand what Mr. Pagliano is saying. I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Why we vote?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess I guess I'm kind of with Paul, Mr. Troy, like I just, it's still gonna be in there, and we've abated before if we've been over. So I don't know that I understand the concept. I mean, I get where you're at, don't get me wrong, but I just, either way, it's still gonna be in there, and we're gonna, if it is higher, which I think I actually don't think he's way too far off. I actually think he still could be short, because I think medical is still going up. But, you know, that's what I see. But I don't think, I like the budget the way it is, but I guess we're gonna take a vote.
Well, I'll make a motion to amend the budget to have the line item for the health claim expense, instead of the 1342073, to make it 342073 and remain everything else the same.
Second.
Yeah, second. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Thompson, can I have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
No.
Mr. Troy?
No.
Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Pittman?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
All right, with that, the motion passes. That, and we are, there is public comment, so if anybody would, it looks like there are some public comments. We've added public comment. All right, so, Ms. Troutman.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to just take a minute to acknowledge two things that have been going on with our district. One, to say thank you to everyone involved with the Hootenanny. I know there's a lot of moving parts to that, a lot of things, the Village of Huntley, the Educational Foundation, probably staff that I maybe not even see or walk across Public Works, but it seems seamless, and I know there's a lot of hours and time put into that. I wanted to at least take a minute to acknowledge everyone for their efforts. It was enjoyable. I don't know who you guys have working to do Mother Nature, but she really came through again this year, so thank you very much. And also, too, thank you for including the light students into the process with that. So that was one thing, and I heard registration was around 3,400, so that's just really phenomenal. I hope it has continued success as we move forward. The other thing is just to kind of agree with Mrs. Gill on what's going on with the SEAC. It was really a positive one yesterday afternoon. Positive in the fact that it was definitely collaboration, walking around, doing the exercises, not only was the atmosphere different than previous SEAC meetings, but it was also, I feel like, even though there's a lot of numbers of things that we want to focus on, once we prioritize them, it feels actionable. Not that we're going to do every single one, but it just really felt like we are moving in a positive direction when it comes to our special services. So I want to thank her and her team for really making that meeting yesterday, at least the first one, I'm looking to make more positive ones. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment. All right, Ms. Stelzner.
Hi again, sorry, I'm not trying to get frequent flyer miles up here, but, I had a couple questions about the budget and the levy, because that was not what I expected. Just so I'm clear, moving $1 million out of healthcare, does that mean that we're just not budgeting for that, and we're just sticking it as extra? Like, what is the message there? Like, I guess, is my concern. Because, I mean, we budget for everything, like, you know, we budgeted for grounds and this and that and other things. We're trying to, like, cut costs, and I know that, you know, we have to pay more for electricity now because ComEd kind of rolled back some things, and we have no control over that. But I feel like, again, for budgeting for things like school supplies, keeping a roof over our students' heads, maintaining our employees' health, like, we would budget for those things. And so I'm just sort of wondering, since we're moving that on a line and the money's still there, there's a message that we're sending, and I'm trying to figure that out. Is that like that we're just not planning for insurance and we just want it to look like we have extra money? Because I'm just very confused about that part. Like, I don't know why we would bother moving that.
If we were on, like, so my personal business, the health, we are not self-insured. So we have a very understood cost for what insurance is. It stays that way throughout the whole year. The district here is self-funded.
Yes, it's a different thing.
So what happens is, if you go through the year, the district is paying the bills. So that's in a bucket. That's the bucket we're tweaking. In last year, that bucket ran out of money.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right way to put that. It ran out of money, so then we used our general fund for it. Mr. Allmeyer, when he put together this budget, as more revenue came in option there, he said, look, I got this extra money. I'm going to put more in that bucket because last year it went up and we went over that. So he was being ultra conservative in that. My point is that when the original budget came out, he had less money there. His original estimate had a smaller amount there. So I wanted to say, let's go back to that and aim for these types of things, because we're essentially granting Ms. Lombard the ability to spend this money. And it really doesn't matter on the line items. So by reducing the overall expense amount, we're controlling, I believe as a board, we're controlling a little bit of where the spending should be. And it shows a gap. That's why we're doing it. It will not affect anybody's health care. And Mr. Allmeyer, is that correct? This is not going to affect anybody's health care. Anybody gets sick, it's going to get covered by the district. This doesn't change it. It's just how much we're expecting in that. So that's a little bit of a gap by both of us.
No, that's very helpful. Like, exposing a gap, do you mean like we didn't keep track? Because I feel like Mr. Allmeyer absolutely kept track of what we went over. Like, our bucket was empty, and then he actually said it was this many dollars that we had to take from somewhere else. It was very clear, like, we knew what the gap was, right?
Okay.
So why are we moving? Like, we already know the gap. I'm confused. I'm sorry.
But so this year, we don't know because we haven't gone through this year.
Yeah, we have like 4 months left, yeah.
We started, this is.
Oh, well, actually, 10 months, yeah, because it's
sorry,
not
the
year to
calendar
year. Yeah.
So we're trying to work through that, and my expectation is that, okay, we can add some of that, we're increasing it by a certain amount, but we're not going to increase it all the way, and we're just trying to create a little bit more financial control around the district. This is my intent by doing it.
Now, if it's in a surplus, though, does that mean we don't spend it? Like, when you say financial control, does that mean it just doesn't get spent,
So
or?
let's say nobody's sick, and nobody.
Oh, let's not say that. Like, just not, no offense to you, people are gonna get sick, that's just life.
Well, let's say it's a lot smaller and the sicknesses are more minimal and we're not spending as much.
Okay.
Right? So that extra money then comes into that and shows up as a surplus even more.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But now, let's say everybody gets sick, what if we spent that money, because it was a surplus on something else, and now we have no money to help, like, our employees? Is that a thing?
No, $0.6 million cushion.
Yeah, so there's a cushion there.
Okay,
Right,
that's
we
cool.
can approve
I
that.
wasn't sure. Okay, I was wondering, like, why we were moving it, just again, because I,
And this is where the risk side of things, if everybody got seriously sick, there is insurance for an individual basis, and I'm guessing as an overall plan, we have a cap, some sort of umbrella.
and it's not gonna look bad that we just, like, didn't plan for that, or that's okay?
It will.
It could,
It could.
but it's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, okay.
But
There's other, there's variances
Yeah.
throughout the budget.
whether it's 1.3 or 0.3 that we're adding to it, that risk is still there. It's just smaller if we add it to 1.3.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sort of, yeah.
Anything else? I'm giving you some leeway to ask.
No, I really appreciate that, because I was just trying to, like, figure out why moving that. I understand, like, the idea of wanting to keep things conservative. I just wanted to ask the math guy, and then I was like, oh, but there's something else going on, so I wanted to kind of see, because, like, you do the numbers, so, you know, it makes me a little nervous when, you know, we're moving stuff without the approval of the number
It makes him
specialist.
nervous too.
Well, yeah, I mean, because in the end, he's got to deal with that. So now, one last question. So, okay, so let's say we get through this year and we need to spend that money. So we need to go back and we need to spend it, whether it's on healthcare or a roof caves in, I hope not, or something, and it's
And
used.
insurance.
If we do it, yeah, it's true, we have insurance if the roof caves in, but if somebody gets cancer, if something happens, we need it. So then, what happens if, like you said, moving forward, you want to keep trying to cut expenses to get to a 3%? Like, I feel like gambling that people are going to stay healthy is not, I mean, that's not like how we control expenses, right?
Right, and that's, so we don't make the decision on the levy until December. So
Yes.
the 3%, 4%, 5%, 0% really doesn't matter in any of this. I mean, it does.
Well, I mean, it would in terms of like where we can cut it, because if there's nowhere to cut it, that's not going to change any time unless we suddenly have robots doing everyone's job. You know what I mean? Like, there's just nowhere to cut that, is what I'm sort of trying to figure out.
I'm not sure I follow, but.
Well, okay, so like, is what, 75 or 80% of our cost is from people? Right.
So, I mean, if we go over budget, then we would amend it as a board if the expenses were reasonable to go
Okay.
over budget.
Okay. But if we, like, let's say we do that, and then again, we keep lowering the levy, then don't we lose out on money, and then doesn't that mess with our 80% is our
So,
staff?
so that's where the abatement comes into play, which would carry on full CPI into next year. The
If we
increase
keep it.
goes into next year. We don't lose that money.
But if we lower it, then the next time they assess it, it does affect, right? As I understand it, then.
Can I make just a suggestion? I don't want to cut you off, but we have a 3-minute time limit, and so.
Oh, I know, he had said he was letting me, talk, that's why.
Yeah, but
Do you want to talk afterwards?
I think
I would
maybe
love
talk
to.
afterwards, that'd be great.
But, yeah, because I think, yeah, I have a couple questions, so. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate the comments. So
No, thank you very
I
much.
apologize for indulging a little bit. I'd like to have the conversation.
No, I greatly appreciate that, thank you.
With that, if there's no other public comments, move to, lost my agenda. Number 18, adjournment. And I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:27 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Quagliano. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the meeting is adjourned.